Hey, how's it going? Today in this video I'm feeling led to share about sexuality, sexual addiction, and forgiveness. And really the intention is to just open this up for other people to maybe explore this for themselves. Because sometimes this is kind of a taboo subject and, you know, certainly there's some guilt and shame around this subject, especially if somebody is dealing with sexual addiction and hiding in it. Um, and I know that from my own personal self because that's what I was doing, and there was lots of guilt and shame around this area and around these thoughts that were in my mind about this. And really, you just have to expose these things. So, just letting people know that it's okay, if you do deal with something like this. And maybe there's just fear around it, for fear to tell your wife or your spouse or whoever because you're afraid of how they may react or get upset. Or maybe there's just so much shame that you're just so embarrassed about it that you just feel like you can't share with anybody. But let me tell you, there's lots of people that deal with this and, maybe don't even realize it because they're in the beginning stages of it and really haven't recognized really what they have going on. But, for me it's been many years, and then recognizing, this term sexual addiction, right, which I think was termed and coined maybe, 15 or 20 years ago, just fairly recently. And I'm sure that has somewhat to do with the increase of pornography and things that you can access through the internet and all of that. But, it's really just to let people know that everybody deals with sexuality. So really this is kind of a video for everyone because even if you're not even sure what I'm talking about and you're like, man, sexual addiction, what is that, maybe you have a normal sexuality, so you've just never dealt with anything like this and never experienced anything around your sexuality. Well, maybe you can learn something from this too, so you're still welcome to watch for sure. But it's just to let people know that I've been in groups and I know many. I would say it's probably more with men than women, but there are women that struggle with it. But I know many men that struggle with this. And, because it's kind of a taboo thing, and morality and all of that, people tend not to talk about it too much. So, for me, kind of my story with it, and I'm going to just share a little bit of my story maybe, and just kind of talk about the ego too, and how the ego plays into this. And also healing and forgiveness. So for me, it started around the age 12, right? Really young, still innocent, and all of that. And over at good old Grandpa's, having a good time over there, and just down in the basement playing around and coming across Gramps' old stash of porn down there, right? The old Playboys. So this is the first time I had ever seen a naked body before, and a woman's body. And I remember where I was and kind of the feelings that I had, and just curious about it, exhilarating feelings, and really just wanting to find out more about this, right? Wanting to experience more of this. And maybe for the next 5 years, it was just a curiosity into trying to find out more. What is this? What is this thing that's giving me this exhilarating, wonderful feelings that I feel? So that's kind of what it was for the next 5 years, exploring it and, meeting other people, other, younger guys that were messing around with it, pornography and things like that, and also experiencing it in relationships with women. So that's kind of what it was for the next 5 years. And I would probably say it wasn't really so much a sexual addiction maybe until about 5 years into it, when I was in a relationship and I began to kind of look at what was going on and just kind of recognize, man, I maybe do have an issue around sexuality. Maybe I ought to take a look at this, and maybe I ought to stop, doing some of the stuff that I'm doing. And in that, not being able to, right? Not being able to stop. And I believe that's when I recognized that I have an addiction. I have an issue with this. I can't stop. I want to stop, but I can't stop, right? So let's just kind of back up and talk about how the ego plays into this, right? Because the ego has all of these needs, and in this perception of lack, right? The ego has these needs for food, clothing, shelter, sex, all of this, and even going beyond that, all of these thoughts of what it wants, money. And in that, there's this perception of lack in that, so there's a pursuit after these things to get more of these things. And in that pursuit of trying to get more, in sexuality, for example, you have to continually get more and more of it, right? You have to continually get more and more of it to be satisfied in the ego. And that's really just how the ego is made up. How all of this is made up, to need and to lack. And because of that, that's just the makeup of the world of illusions. And when you begin to use anything beyond what it's really meant for, it can become an addiction. It can become something that you become trapped in, and all of it's mind. So for me, I began to, like I said, because I wanted to stop and I couldn't stop, that began to produce lots of thoughts of guilt and shame, right? All of this guilt and shame began because, I can't stop. Oh, man. God, I promise you I won't do this again. God, help me, And, all of that kind of stuff, right? And all of this shame and all of this guilt around it, because you can't get to where you want to get, because you can't get the results you want to get. So you begin to have all of this shame, this guilt, and this depression, and then on top of that, the anxiety and just wanting to isolate yourself because of it, and really just kind of taking yourself into a place where you really just begin to feel like there's no hope. There's no hope. And this is just how it's going to be. And the ego had convinced me of that. I had convinced myself that, this is just how it's going to be. I'll never be able to get out of this, right? After building up all of these thoughts and these illusions in my mind around all of this, how it kind of started innocently and turned into this monster, that's just now devouring me. And I want to get away from it, but I can't. Now I'm trapped, I'm chained. I'm chained to this thing. And all of its mind, all of its thought. And, right, it's this thought that the body is really what you are. And that's kind of what happens when your mind is really brought to this lower place of consciousness, and you really begin to believe that you're this body, and it's not just, most of the people in the world are kind of in that place where, that's the only level that they're on, where they just believe only in the body, right, and all of the things of the body, and not really beyond that at all. But when you're caught in like an addiction like that, you really take yourself even lower, so when you're viewing women or in the pursuit of it, like this lack, And that's what happens in the addiction. You just continue to feel like there's this lack of anything. When I'm stressed, I have to use sexuality now to make myself feel better from this stress or this anger. And it's just this continual lack, right? And trying to fill it with sexuality, which it can never be filled. Can never fill it with that because it's of the body. And the body is limited, it can't communicate. But really from this place, you just perceive women as only body parts for, oh, she's attractive because she has certain body parts that, that I like. And that is the only thing that somebody in a sexual addiction like that will really see in another person. They only see the body and only see what they can get and what they want. So it's all just for the self, for the ego, and just to fill the ego's needs. So it's very selfish. It's a very selfish place. And, a place where your consciousness has just been lowered. But, beyond that, you can come out of that through the help of the Spirit and through things. And first, it's really just recognizing that you have an issue. It wasn't until I began to really even recognize that, maybe I do have something going on here, that I was able to begin the process of asking and trying to do something about it, right? And, it's not always easy, and it can take years to undo a lot of what you've done in your mind, especially if you've been doing it for many years. Maybe if you haven't been involved with something like that for many years, you'll be able to change your mind fairly easy out of it, but a lot of that just, it depends on the person and what you've been going through and what you've done. But, there's no difficulty in miracles, so all of this can be healed. But it's first in recognizing that you're responsible for what's going on, and that you actually can choose. You can actually choose. You can choose the right mind, and you can choose the right thoughts. But you're responsible for doing that, and you're responsible for what's going through your mind. So really, that's kind of first and foremost. And, because of a lot of regression, in most of the people that would deal with something like that, there's regression about it, And you just have to begin to find people that you can trust and open up to those people and just begin to talk about it. Just begin to let it all out, right? And as you do that, you can begin to really just allow yourself to begin to kind of see some of the thoughts and see what's really going on in your mind. And then there's healing in that, There's healing just in doing that and opening up and talking about it with people that you could trust. So, that's kind of another step that you would need to make with it to begin to release a lot of that, a lot of the things that have been regressed there. And as you begin to do these steps, you're going to begin to feel yourself and your consciousness rising up into, really higher and higher states where you're being released from all of these ego thoughts of lack. And, first it might begin to start with those thoughts of depression and shame. That's kind of how it was for me, beginning to work with a lot of that and letting a lot of that go and rising up above all of that, rising up from this lower place and really beginning to receive this healing in your mind. And that comes from the forgiveness that I can choose the right thing, but, what I really want is this forgiveness. What I really want is to have these thoughts replaced with thoughts of truth. And that comes from letting these thoughts of past go, because all of this guilt and shame and depression, it's all past. It's all past. And the truth has to be replaced by it. So that's where the forgiveness comes in, and really calling on the Holy Spirit to come in and show us the truth. Just asking the Holy Spirit to show me how to do this. Right? And that's where I began to experience a lot of my healing It was from letting a lot of these experience a lot of my healing. It was from letting a lot of these thoughts go by opening up and talking about it, and then really just listening and asking the Holy Spirit to show me how to heal. And I remember some of the biggest healings that I ever had was, just being in that moment of temptation where it's like, yes, I want to give in to this, but, no, I really don't want to. And in that moment, just being confused and being in fear, and asking the Holy Spirit and asking Jesus, Jesus, I know right now I'm in fear, I'm confused. Jesus, just show me how to love right now. And just sitting with that and being quiet and listening and allowing the Holy Spirit to show me the truth. And in that, I've had some of the biggest healings, and really seeing, where the error was, and just letting it go, and the truth just coming in and filling me with peace, and recognizing this is what I really want, not that. That's not what I really want. Those energies and that bodily function that's rising up, it's only distorted. It's only because I've distorted it and used it in a way that is beyond what it should be used for. So therefore, it's become distorted in the mind for how it's supposed to be used. And the body's not true communication. I can't communicate with other people through the body as much as the ego might want to think that it can. That's only a very low place that, leads to very much sickness, That's sickness. So you're rising up to this place where you can truly communicate with your brothers and sisters through forgiving and just asking like that. And as you begin to do that, now you begin to see your brothers, your sisters, for who they truly are. Now you begin to see them as children of God, because that's who you're knowing yourself as. That's who the Holy Spirit is showing who you are. I'm this child of God who is complete, who is whole, who is healed. And now I see my sisters like that. I no longer see them for their bodies, but I see them for the beautiful children of God that they are, the powerful, communicative beings in this one mind that I can communicate with. And, that's where it's at. That's where the true communication is. That's where the love is. That's where the joy is. That's really where it's found. And let me tell you something. I don't care, how much, sex, yeah, it gives you some great feelings and, all of that. But I will tell you, I've had some of the greatest experiences of my life in miracles and joining with my brothers and sisters continually, and in just revelations from God. Receiving revelations from God and just being in these heightened states of joy and peace and love. That's really limitless, that can continue going on and on forever, right? And this is where the true joy is. This is where the true peace is. And it's not found just in this bodily function, right? This bodily function that's really use is only to really procreate, is what its use is for. And really with anything, that's when we begin to experience the pain, is when we distort it and try to use the body beyond its means. And that's really what this video is about, So, I hope this maybe sheds some light on some things, and maybe just open you up to maybe just find, if you are struggling with something like this, giving you the confidence and, the energy to just go and maybe talk to somebody else about it. Maybe just start there and just open up, if you are struggling with something like that. There's, you're not a bad person. You haven't done anything wrong. But your mind is just in a place of error, and you just need correction. And you can only find that if you begin to take responsibility for it and call on the Holy Spirit to begin to help you and to begin to forgive, right? And in this place, you can find true healing. So, yeah, I'm feeling kind of complete with all of that, and it feels pretty good. So I hope this video brings some light and love, and God bless you. Much love.